Jai Hind everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel which is Explore Yourselves, Banking and General Knowledge, etc. Memoir of my banking journey by Mr. V.H. Ramakrishnan, retired General Manager of Bank of India. Episode number 45. The chapter My Days in Head Office is continuing. The link of earlier episodes is available in description. I have practically covered the period of Mr. Kathuria's chairmanship. During his tenure, I visited Kenya thanks to Indo-Zambia Bank meetings, Hong Kong thanks to Commonwealth Finance, Singapore and US. I had not visited UK, Paris and Japan branches. I made one more visit to Singapore. To my surprise, I was nominated for a training program for 5 days conducted by, if I remember right, by Asian Banker. The note was not put up by our department. I think the CMD marked directly on the letter received from the Asian banker. It was on Forex. I do not remember the topics now. It was a tight schedule. Pawan Bajaj, present MD of United Bank of India, was the chief dealer and R.C. Khurana was the number 2 of the branch. Of course, Nayak was the chief executive. I fully enjoyed the hospitality of Khurana and Bajaj. Khurana never allowed me to dine outside. Lunch was part of the package of the training. There were two trainers. One was jovial and that made the proceedings lively. I found the training very useful. I just spent one day at the branch. Mr. M. Venugopalan, who took over from me at Delhi, was selected for London posting and had taken charge from Mr. Sheikh. He was insisting on my visiting London. He said that in all the other foreign banks, senior executives used to visit the regulators every year. He sent me a letter which I put up to Mr. Katuria. He was to relinquish office within 3 weeks. He approved my trip to London, but put a clause that it was subject to clearance from the new CMD. So Venu and I planned my trip and scheduled it to start a couple of weeks after the new CMD took charge. Venu told me that he had to fix the appointments well in advance. I told him to go ahead and do that. The day after Mr. Vide took charge, I went to him on the, with the note approved by Mr. Katuria. He went through it and told me that there was no need to go now as he had just taken charge. I informed him that it was my first visit and appointments have been fixed with the regulators and other important bankers and customers. I also added that I would be away for only 4 working days. But to my surprise, he said that I should ask Venugopal to cancel the appointments and that I could plan a trip later. I had to agree as I could see that he was very firm in his decisions. It is a different matter that later on he became quite close to me. I called up Venu and told him to cancel the appointments. Venu was not happy, but we are helpless. I do not want the readers to form an opinion about Mr. Vive on the basis of this incident. In fact, he was a great person and I a visionary. More about that later. I did not seek any approval from Mr. Vive for London even after a few months. I only made my usual trip to Zambia. Mr. Katuria once told me that there was no PR culture in Bank of India. He showed me a memo for awarding punishment to an officer. He said that no attempt was made to protect a good officer. He told me that in SBI they would try their best to protect a good officer. He repeated this statement quite often. Whenever a case came to me for my decision as a disciplinary authority, I used to put myself in the shoes of the officer and then think whether I would have done anything different. If the answer was no, I would close the matter by clearing him of all charges. I am not talking of frauds. Mr. Katuria was always focusing on profit. He would always keep track of lendable funds and try to get some good business. He did not believe in cost cutting measures. He would always say, spend more if need be, but earn more. He did not promote any DGM at GM if he had less than 1 year. I had mentioned about a specific case in my Dilli Chalo series. For the sake of new readers, I would repeat it. When I was in Delhi, The interviews for DGM to GM were to take place. One of the senior DGMs, who was heading a zone, had only 11 months to retire. He wanted me to find out whether he would have any chance of getting a promotion if he appeared for interview. So I asked Mr. Katuria when he came to Delhi for an official visit. He told me, "You can tell Mr. So and so that I would not promote him since he has less than 1 year." Then DGM concerned did not appear for the interview since he knew in advance what would happen to him. He said he would gladly retire as a senior most DGM rather than failing in the interview. There were a number of farewell parties for Mr. Katuria. We all felt sad when he retired. I was in touch with him as long as he was in Mumbai. He has settled down in Jaipur. Mr. Bhide arrives. Mr. Bhide was the managing director of State Bank of India. When its co-managing director was selected for the CMD post of State Bank of India, Mr. Bhide was appointed as the CMD of our bank. He had worked as manager of London branch of State Bank of India. He had developed a very good relationship with many foreign bankers who used to call on him whenever they visited India. Mr. Bhide was also a member of the famous Narasimhan Committee, which suggested various reforms in the banking system. Morning meetings. Morning meetings of Mr. Bhide were different from those held by Mr. Katuria. While Mr. Katuria used to discuss specific matters, Mr. Bhide used to discuss things at macro level. Our first morning meeting started at 9:45 a.m. and continued till about 12 noon. Mr. Bhide spoke in general about the problems facing banking industry and outlined a few of his ideas. He had a flair for forex. He did not mention a single word about his predecessors. I was a bit surprised at this. Mr. Kathuria also had not mentioned about Mr. Dhaotre when he addressed the first Zonal Managers Conference. When I became a little close to Mr. Vide, I asked him whether it was the culture of State Bank of India and not to mention anything about the predecessors. He was surprised and asked me why I was asking this question. I told him that even Mr. Katuria did not praise the good work done by Mr. Dhaotre, and he did not say anything about the contributions of Mr. Katuria. He just said it might be a coincidence. There was no direct answer to my questions. I understand this is the practice in many banks. The only exception was Mr. Ramachandran, who took over from our Mr. R.S. Reddy in Andhra Bank. This was during my directorship of Andhra Bank after my retirement. He did not stop with praising Mr. Reddy. When an award was received for the best performance of the bank during the previous year, he invited Mr. Reddy to a board meeting and honored him. Back to the morning meetings. The second day also, the meeting went on past 12 noon. It became a daily affair. The discussions were very interesting. Mr. Vide was a voracious reader and he used to quote it from various sources which we had never heard of. Some of the new phrases we learned were haircut, number two, back of the envelope calculation, cherry picking. We are not only a nationalized bank but also a national bank. However, when it became a daily affair to have the meetings for more than 2 hours, we felt a little uncomfortable. We would get back to the seats where a huge pile of folders would be waiting. Sometimes before I could take my seat, he would call me to his cabin to meet a foreign correspondent. By the time I returned to my seat, it would be lunchtime. In one of the farewell meetings held for Mr. Bhide, I was asked to speak. I could not resist mentioning about the morning meeting. I said the morning meetings enriched our knowledge. Only thing was it would start with a coffee and end up with a soup before lunch. He allowed us to have pre-discussions during the morning meetings. Once initiated a discussion as to whether we should finance a company manufacturing products containing tobacco. That was when he said, "We are not only a nationalized bank but also a national bank, so we have additional responsibilities to the society." He was not in favor of sanctioning the proposal of that customer who was one of the best customers with AAA rating. Mr. AI Sheikh, who was also a tobacco user, and I vehemently argued that as a commercial bank, we should only look into the business aspect and no other factor. The majority of GMs agreed with us. Mr. Vijay was magnanimous enough to accept our views, and the proposal was cleared by him. In retrospect, I would say we enjoyed the morning meeting. We learned a lot. It was an intellectual discussion time. Tell peace. Once Mr. Vide was in discussions with some senior officers of RBI. They were discussing the economic situation. One of them said optimistically that it could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Mr. Vide quipped, it might be the light of the engine coming in the opposite direction. New credit committee. The first thing Mr. Vite did was to set up a new credit committee. He said all the proposals falling within the sanctions of the chairman should be vetted by a committee of general managers. We pointed out that it would delay decision. Then he explained the logic behind this move. He said a chairman might have to face pressure from political class with regard to loans. If there is a committee, then he can diplomatically say that the proposal was not recommended by the committee. I had mentioned earlier about the techniques used by Mr. Dahatre while dealing with such pressures. Mr. Vide found committee system suited his style. I was made a member or chairman of this committee. Post retirement, I once met a deputy governor of RBI at the Chennai airport. I knew that DG very well. I was a director of Andhra Bank at that time. While chatting about the board and its functioning, DG, who was a director of State Bank of India, told me in a lighter vein that the SBI chairman has no sanctioning responsibility. The DG explained that the chairman does not have any sanctioning powers. Individual sanctioning powers stop with the managing directors. Thereafter, all proposals to the board are routed through the chairman with his recommendations. Mr. Vide was very comfortable with lending to good PSUs. The proposal should come back with his approval recommendations very fast. Somehow he used to be extra careful with regard to the private sector. He would study the papers meticulously and raise queries. Mr. Vide had his own reservations about stock exchanges. He used to call them as casinos. To add to his woes, we had one government director who was very authoritative. He was not from the banking division. Sometimes he would behave as if he was the chairman of the bank. Mr. Vide, being a gentleman to the core and soft spoken, had an uncomfortable time, but he managed the situation tactfully. My first class with the government director, I had the habit of fighting for a cause if I am fully convinced. In those days, if an officer posted abroad had to travel on official duty to another foreign center, he would be entitled only for actual expenses. For instance, if the CEO of UK branches has to visit Paris or Manchester, he could not claim any daily traveling allowances. One day when I was talking to my counterpart in Bank of Baroda, I came to know that they used to pay daily traveling allowances and not actuals. I felt my officers also should get the same benefit. I told my department to collect information from Bank of Baroda and State Bank of India. We submitted a paper to the board seeking approval. The daily allowances proposed was an attractive figure. I do not recollect the exact amount. When this was taken up for discussions, I even remember this meeting was held in Delhi. The government director tried to reject it outright. Perhaps he had government rules in mind. I got a little emotional and asked him if officers of Bank of India and State Bank of India can enjoy such a privilege, why not my officers? The government director was visibly annoyed at my outburst. Before he could pass any comments, one of the other directors, who was a very reasonable and straightforward person, intervened and said, there is merit in what Ramakrishnan says. He then suggested some minor amendments to the proposals. I could not resist commenting that is a good suggestion. Immediately, the government director pounced upon me. I do not want the GMs to pass opinion on the director's views. I quickly said, I am sorry, but the proposal went through with that minor amendment. I was very happy that I could do something for my executives abroad, but I was worried of whether Mr. Bhide would take me to task. No, he never mentioned the subject. Another confrontation. This happened during the second half of Mr. Bhide's term. I am narrating this here for the sake of continuity. I think it was a management committee meeting. There were two GMs in charge of credit. One of the GMs, not H.G. Mehta, who was a veteran in the field, presented a proposal for additional limits for a borrower. It was not a strong case. The same government director was furious as he felt the limits were not justified. After airing his views on the proposal, he asked a sharp question to the GM. Do you think this proposal has been professionally prepared. That the GM got nervous and started saying, "No, sir." Before he could complete the sentence, the director told the board secretary, "Please record in the minutes that the GM said the proposal was not professionally prepared." There was an uneasy calm in the boardroom. I felt this was too much. I raised my voice and said, "I think it is not fair to record like that in the minutes." Mr. Bhide, who was sitting next to the government director, was meanwhile showing me signs to keep quiet. But it was too late. The government director looked at me and asked me why. I told him this proposal has been prepared by the department and recommended by the general managers. Thereafter, the executive director and the chairman have also vetted and recommended. Then only it has come to the board committee. To put such a remark against the GM is not fair. After I finished in my usual loud voice, I thought there would be something similar to an earthquake. There was a pin drop, silence for a few moments. Then, to my surprise, the director said, "Then we'll record that the GM withdraw the proposal." I was relieved and immediately thanked the director. After the meeting was over, the GM concerned, who was junior to me, came to me and whispered thanks in my ears. Now I would caution the young executives of the bank who might read this. Please do not try to imitate me. I got away because the director saw some merit in my argument. Mr. Vidhe was magnanimous in not taking me to task after the meeting. Perhaps if some other CMD was there, he would have shifted me next day to head audit department. When Mr. Vidhe was leaving our bank, he called me and told me, "I am only worried about you. You will not stand any nonsense and walk away one day. So try your best to control yourself." I thanked him and told him that I would bear his advice in my mind. I was touched by his kind words. The same government director, after his tenure with our bank was over, called me on phone one day for some information. He surprised me by saying, "Ramakrishnan, how come you are still a GM? I thought you would have become an executive director." Mr. Katuria again. C. Chandrasekhar, who was AGM Treasury during my tenure, had responded with an interesting episode about Mr. Katuria, which I thought is worth including in my narrations. Quote, "Mr. Katuria always speaks from his heart. It was very embarrassing to me, Chandrasekhar, when in Hong Kong, in front of staff, Mr. Katuria apologized for not promoting me to grade 5, even though it was mostly my making. However, the interview where I failed was very productive. We had a healthy discussions on training requirements of overseas staff. Mr. Katoti immediately agreed to my suggestions to deput staff for Euro money training, despite reservations from HR head in the interview. I was, of course, the first to be sent for the training, but then several staff members from international development and overseas branches were regularly nominated to the training. From Treasury, with the support of Mr. Sinai and later from Mr. VHR, we could nominate every year two people for Euro money training at Singapore or Hong Kong. Besides being an incentive, the training was also knowledge enhancing. Unquote. Thank you, Chandrasekhar, for your input. No other chairman would have apologized to SKL officers for not promoting him that too in the open hall. Tell peace. I heard this story from another GM. It was Deepavali time. One well-known and good borrower was in Mumbai. He had not met Mr. Bhide. On a Sunday before Deepavali, he instead went to the chairman's house and knocked the door. Mr. Bhide used to take things easy on Sundays. With an unshaven face and in casual dress, he opened the door and saw the customer carrying a big gift box. He coolly told the customer that Mr. Bhide was not at home and that he was not authorized to receive any gifts and sent the customers away. Changes in my departments. When Venugopalan was posted to London, Mr. R.M. Desai, who was DGM International, was transferred and posted as General Manager of North Zone. I had a wonderful time with Desai. Mr. R.D. Jadhav was posted as DGM International Development. I was not consulted about this posting. I had my reservations. The main reason was Mr. Jadhav was an agricultural officer. He did not have any exposure in the foreign exchange or had worked abroad. I was not against agri officers, but at that time I felt the DGM of International Development, who had to deal with various overseas branches, should have an exposure to foreign exchange or very good commercial banking experience. I expressed my reservations to the CMD, who told me that Jadhav was a very good officer and I would not face any problem. I accepted the situation. Jadhav was a soft-spoken person and was quite intelligent. He was able to adapt himself to the new positions very fast and was able to manage the department. I did not face any problem. Another factor that helped him was the fact that desk officers and the chief managers were of high caliber. I remember one incident. Mrs. Kumar called me one night from New York about a problem. I listened to her and told her I would get back to her the next morning. Knowing the caliber of my officers, I did not lose my sleep. Next morning, I called the chief manager and M. K. Hariharan, who was the desk officer. I posed the problem. Within 2 minutes, Hari smiled and gave a simple solution. Similarly, Khambate also used to come out with the solutions with such an ease that calling these boys and talking to them was always a pleasure. G. Narayanan, who was second in command in FBD, was selected for posting as manager of Jersey Channel Islands. Narayan says, I was in the interview committee. In its place, Sugata Datta was posted. Another brilliant officer. I was, as I had said earlier, he could always make any difficult proposal a bankable one. More about him later. A.C. Mahajan got promoted as DGM in 1998. He was posted to Treasury as in charge at my instance. I will come to that in due course. When Mahajan left, Datta took charge of the department. He had fairly long stint in the department and was then selected to head Paris branch. He retired as general manager. Post-retirement, he took up an assignment with the Institute of Bankers. Change of board secretary. When Sudhir Rao left for Osaka, Mr. Gunalan took over as board secretary. There was a vast difference between the two. Sudhir Rao was smartly dressed and exuded confidence and efficiency every moment. He could stand out in a crowd. Gunalan was one in a crowd. He would appear to be very mild and hesitant, but he was equally efficient like Sudhir Rao. He knew his job very well and was very meticulous. His recordings of minutes were very good. After his tenure in board secretariat was over, he left the bank and joined Development Credit Bank. I came to know very recently that he passed away in 2016. 1997, an eventful year for me. This was a year which brings mixed feelings in mind. Happy and sad things happened to me in both personal and official life. I would go in chronological order. Number one, 25 years of masonry. I had completed 25 years in Freemasonry, Lodge Acquaintance, Chennai, in which I was a member. Decided to present me and my friend P.R. Venkatachalam, who joined Bank of India in 1966 with me and quit before nationalization, with a jewel to mark the silver jubilee of our membership at a special function at the Freemasons Hall, Chennai. As is the practice, the dinner on that day had to be hosted by the recipients of the award. The dinner cost was estimated at rupees 10,000. I remitted my share of rupees 5,000, a big amount in those days, and confirmed that I would be attending. The leading chartered accountants of Chennai were members of the lodge. I had mentions about the lodge when I wrote about my experience as the branch manager of Capital Road branch. The date was fixed about 2 months before. A week before the luncheon, we received a communication from the RBI that the review of the inspection report of RBI would be discussed with the top management of it on a particular date. To my horror, I found that it was the date on which I was to be in Chennai to receive the award. I had already booked my tickets by air. I went to Mr. Vide and requested him to excuse myself from attending the meeting. I told him that there was not much in the report about international operations and that my DGM might be allowed to take my place. He said no. I explained about the Freemasonry, the award, and also my contributions of rupees 5,000 for the dinner. No, he did not budge an inch. Then I was praying for the RBI itself to postpone the meeting. That also did not happen. Even on the day of the meeting, I came to the office fully prepared to take an afternoon flight in case the RBI postponed the meeting. Again, no. Finally, attended the RBI meeting. I requested Venkatachalam to inform the lodge about my inability to attend the meeting. That was a big disappointment for me, since I was an active Freemason in Mumbai in Lodge Chartered Accountants. Number 2. Rain, Rain and Rain and Salam Mumbai. 23rd August 1997. It was a Saturday. My daughter was to land around midnight. She was coming from New Jersey to attend my son's wedding, which was to take place on 7th September. I had a very good driver named Ramachandar. Being a Saturday, I came home around 3 p.m. I told him to come around 9 p.m. to go to the airport. Then the rain started pouring like anything. I had not seen such heavy rains. There was no sign of Ramachandra till 9 p.m. I lost hope. But around 10 p.m., Ramachandra reported. I do not know how he managed to come. I was yet to realize the full story of the rain. No mobile those days. I was not sure whether I could reach the airport before midnight. So before leaving the house, I rang up the Nagas Paida, who later became CMD of the Oriental Bank of Commerce, who was staying in Andheri, and requested him to go to the airport and inform my daughter to wait for me. He said he could do that as there was not any traffic jam near his place. I left the house at 10 p.m. It was still raining. I had the bank's car, a non-air conditioned Fiat Premier Padmini. Those days GMs were entitled only for this. Air conditioning ambassador was given only to the CMD. We started slowly inching our way to the airport. There was a traffic jam on Bridge Kandy Road. By the time I reached Haji Ali, it was 11:30. There was a big crowd there waiting for transport. There were all office squares waiting from 7 p.m. to go to home. No public transport. The moment my car stopped for a while, many surrounded me for a lift. I could accommodate about 4 persons, including three ladies. We all had to squeeze ourselves. But what amused me was their cheerful mood. They laughed and cracked jokes. On the way, a few got down and new persons got in. We were moving slowly. There were diversions on the way as the main roads were flooded. No policemen were visible. There were many good Samaritans. Many were controlling the traffic and directed motorists to go to better roads. At one place, a person wearing a raincoat came near my car and gave us hot tea and refused to take any money. That night, I saw the real spirit and helping tendency of Mumbaitis. Suddenly, my driver said that water has entered the car. Within a few seconds, I found the water coming up to my ankles in the back seat and it was rising. I thought that the car would stop. No, Padmini did not give up. Ramachandra was cleverly navigating as if he was riding a boat. Then luckily the water started receding. The airport was nowhere in sight. Now I had no other co-passengers. Slowly the rain stopped, but the roads were flooded. Then the airport was in sight. Simultaneously the first rays of the sun appeared on the horizon. Yes, it was 6 a.m. when I reached the airport. 8 hours in the car without a wink of sleep. I rushed inside the airport. I found out from the display board that the flight was to land at 7:30 a.m. What happened was the flight could not land at midnight in Mumbai and was diverted to Chennai. From Chennai it took off at 6:15 a.m. I rang up my wife and informed her. She said that Nagesh had phoned around 12 a.m. to say that the flight had been diverted to Chennai. Then I rushed to the cafeteria to have my morning coffee. Never have I enjoyed a coffee like that. After receiving my daughter, I told her about my ordeal and warned her that we might take a long time to reach home. But to my surprise, the roads were deserted and there was no traffic. We reached home in 45 minutes. The morning newspaper said that Mumbai recorded a rainfall of 34 centimeters the previous day. An unforgettable night, wonderful car wedding through flooded roads, an excellent driver and helpful citizens. About last chapter, it is always difficult to anticipate the reaction of readers. When I made a casual remark that any other CMD would have transferred me to the audit department, it attracted a lot of responses than the main theme. Tailpiece. Many of the readers might be knowing A.C. Mahajan. I had written about him earlier. He had a loud and booming voice. His office was on 7th floor of Express Towers. When he was heading the FBT, I was sitting on the 14th floor. I once told him in a lighter vein, if you want to talk to me, do not use intercom. Just open the window by your side and talk to me. I can hear you on 14th floor. 1997 continued. My son's wedding. The wedding took place on 7th September at Chennai. I took leave for just 6 days. I printed on the invitation that guests should not bring any gifts. This was a very happy event during 1997. I invited many staff members for the wedding. Somehow I forgot to send an invitation to Mr. Ms. Sithuraman, about whom I had written in my early days in Bank of India. But he walked in during reception. He knew from common friends about the wedding. It was a magnanimous gesture by him. I apologized to him profusely. He said that he does not require any invitations to attend the functions in my family. 4. Banker 1997. This major conference was held every alternate year by the banks in rotation. In 1997, it was the turn of Bank of India. This was done in coordination with IBA. It was a two-day conference. Planning department headed by Sinoy made all the arrangements. Mr. N.V. Rao was the DGM planning. Rao did his MS in economics or was it PhD from Minnesota. He had a command of written English, very simple and unassuming person. On the budget day or when the monetary policy is released, his note with comments would be on the table of CMD within 30 minutes, giving him enough material to answer the calls from the press. The conference was attended by the banking secretary, deputy governors, and all the chairmen and EDs of banks. I was given the assignment of proposing vote of thanks to a technical session chaired by Mr. A.T. Pannerselvam, chairman of Union Bank of India. Rao gave me a draft speech from which I deviated and gave it a humorous touch. I used the slogan of Union Bank, thanks good people to bank with, in my speech, which made ATP very happy. The conference showed us the esteem in which Mr. Bhide was held by the banking fraternity. I also got an opportunity to move with many bankers. It was a pleasant experience. 5. Interview for Executive Director's post. Sometime during October 97, interviews were called for the post of Executive Directors in the banks. Those days there was only one Executive Director for each bank, so the number of vacancies were limited. Even though I was promoted in 1995, there were no interviews in 96 or early 97. Thus, not only my batch, but also the next batch of GMs who were promoted before March 96 were also eligible. Thus, a big contingent of 7 or 9 appeared for interview. From my batchmate Mehrotra, H.G. Mehta, Diwanji appeared. From the subsequent batch, Chinoy appeared. I do not remember the other names. The interview had two parts. One was an interview by committee consisting of the Deputy Governor, Mr. Talwar, Banking Secretary, Mr. Basudev, and a professor from some management institute. I did fairly well in the interview. There was one question for which I could not give a satisfactory answer. The question was why our government is not allowing the foreign banks to set up subsidiaries and ask them to open only branches. I was not one of those who are quick-witted. Later on, when I posed the questions to Mr. R. Nagarajan, gave the answer. In the case of subsidiaries, the parent bank has no liability. Only the subsidiary is liable. In the case of branches, parent bank is also liable. The management professors asked me about crisis management. That gave me an opportunity to mention about my Nigerian experiences where we had to face crisis almost on daily basis. The second part of the interview was a group discussion. We are six people in one group. Mr. Mehrotra and I were in one group. Others were from other banks. The topic was is nationalizations of banks good for the country. Mr. Mehrotra started the discussions by defending nationalizations. When my turn came, I spoke against nationalizations. I thought that a group discussion would be meaningful only if opposite views are expressed. But to my surprise, everybody else spoke praising nationalizations. The discussions did not enter a second round. It was like an oratorical contest where each one spoke for about 3 to 4 minutes. They asked us to close the discussion within 15 minutes. The day after the interview, Mr. Gopalakrishnan from Bank of Baroda called me and told me that he had been informed by Mr. K.V. Krishnamurthy, he was ED of the Bank of Baroda, that his name was on the list. He asked me whether I had any information about me. I replied in the negative. Then itself I had a feeling that my name was not there. Within 2 days, I had to go to Delhi to attend a board meeting of Indo-Jambia Bank. I met both Gopalakrishnan and Chopra, Central Bank at Delhi. Both of them said their names were there. Next day morning, Mr. Kapoor, our TRO, came to my room. He told me very hesitantly that Sinoy and Diwanji were selected and that my name was not there. I took the news calmly. If I say that I was not disappointed, it would be a lie. I was disappointed but not devastated. We always used to feel in those days that selections of ED, CMD was a different ballgame. When my wife noticed my disappointment, she looked at the news from another angle. She told me, you are going to be in a top positions in the bank for another 3.5 years. Why don't you take this as an opportunity given to you to help your junior colleagues in the bank as against working as number two in a new bank? I thought about her words. It made sense. My disappointment started fading. Looking back, I feel I had done something to guide and help my juniors. It was an open secret that the chairman were consulted about the suitability of the persons for the ED positions. I thought Mr. Vide would not have backed me, but an independent director, a well-respected gentleman, told me that Mr. Vide had strongly backed me and Sinoi. I also came to know later on as to why I missed the bus. I may reveal it at a suitable time. Those 45 days. My father was living in Chennai. I had already recorded that my mother passed away in 1980. I had no siblings. I had also mentioned in my Kenyan safari that my father underwent a major surgery in 1979. Now, in the middle of November 1997, I received a message that my father has been admitted in Kaliappa Hospital, now known as Milroth Hospital. I applied for a week's leave and took the next available flight to Chennai. Even though I had applied for a 1 week leave, I had to extend it every week. Ultimately, I had to stay in Chennai for 45 days. Mr. Vijay was kind enough to sanction my leave promptly and never asked me when I could report back. I was very grateful to him for his patience. In those days, we had a system of alternate general managers. If I was not available, all my papers would go to Mr. Yagnik. He was my alternate. He was handling an important portfolio of asset recovery. He took up this additional responsibility during my absence and did a wonderful job. Back to my 45 days. I spent 45 days in the hospital. My father was in a separate room with the provisions for me to sleep on a narrow cot. I had arranged for a special nurse for 24 hours. My wife also joined me in Chennai. In the morning, my wife would come around 8:30 a.m. to relieve me. I would go to my brother-in-law's place for taking bath and meals. Then by 10:30 a.m. I would be back in the hospital with some tiffin and packed dinner and relieve my wife. Then I would go only the next morning. My father had to undergo two surgeries during this period. At this point, I had to mention about a few persons who showed extraordinary kindness to me. Mr. Inarachan was the general manager. Mr. Manibhannan was the PRO. Both of them would always come to my help. If I need a car, it would come within 5 minutes. Mr. K. Rajagopal, who worked with me in Lagos, was staying in Adyar about 4 kilometers from the hospital. He was in charge of Chennai overseas branch. He insisted on bringing coffee for me every morning, even though I told him that I could get coffee at the hospital canteen. He simply would not listen. By 6:15 every morning, he would come in his car with a flask full of freshly made filter coffee. One day, when he was not able to come, he sent his son. It is very difficult to see such an affection. Did not miss a single day. On top of it, he would bring some snack on every Sunday afternoon. Mr. K. Gopalan, who was my first clerk in Bank of India, was also in Chennai. Every evening, he would take his car and pick up Mr. C.M. Ramanathan, who was leading a retired life in Mylapore, and both of them would come to the hospital by 8:30 p.m. They would sit with me, and we used to chat about good old days. They also did not miss a single day and came on all the 45 days. Their visit was a big relief for me during that trying time. They came mainly to cheer me up. I had written about CMR and Gopalan in my early days in Bank of India. Those 45 days would continue in the next chapter. Tailpiece. I knew a clever financial consultant. He knew many of the GMs, EDs, CMDs of different banks. Whenever his GM known to him appeared for interview, he would voluntarily tell him that he had spoken to the right persons for the GM to be promoted as ED. In reality, he would not do anything. If the GM gets promoted, this financial consultant would take credit. Same with ED appearing for CMD positions. In case the person did not get promoted, he would tell him that his CMD had not recommended him and that he had seen the reports himself. It was always a win-win situation for this consultant. The chapter My Days in Head Office is continuing. Thank you very much for your patience. Request for like, subscribe and share.